Alright, start reading a book. We had two options, a distant trumpet or east to west. So I'm going to start with a distant trumpet. This book belongs to Emily Arbor, 11 Boothby Street, Augusta, Maine. And it could have been, people used to stop by all the time and give stuff to the priests. A lot of mentally ill people too that used to frequent here. Yeah, a lot of them talk to themselves. Copyright 51, 52, 53, 54, and 60 by Paul Horgan. Library of Congress Catalog number 60-7628. Printed in the United States of America. Dedicated with affectionate thanks to Colonel and Miss Livingston Watrous of the Army. Watrous? W-A-T-R-O-U-S. Colonel and Miss Livingston Watrous of the Army, who told me at dinner in Washington on the eve of my separation from the service in 1946, the family anecdote from which this whole story took form. Book 1, Scenes from Early Times. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. If my father's child can get to be the president, your father's child can make his heart's desire. Abraham Lincoln. You are your father's child. Whether they disown you or write you off or not. Some things you just can't change biologically, I guess. Well, technically, but still, it was once, or exactly. You can alter, sure, intrinsically feel whatever that is. Sure. Page 3. This book is 629 pages long. I can read that, yes. There is a postscript in the back. As a work of fiction, this book invokes appropriate indulgences in respect of historical fact, for while I have taken much profit from reading the literature of my period, I have not been strictly bound by it in my pursuit of design and form, in the course of which, where suitable, I have fitted events to my characters, all of whom are of course fictitious, except for those presented under historical names, rather than the other way around. Oh, yeah, and by the way, the creatine, this is, I think, my favorite one so far. I've used creatine off and on for over a few decades now. I have a lot of old injuries and stuff. And this is good for, I think, muscle, if you want to build muscle. It's really good, though, for brain functioning, especially if you have old brain trauma and injuries. They say even the slightest bump is a concussion, so. And then, of course, they talk about this in a lot of the different classes we do about mental concussions. I think they've proven scientifically that they can almost be as, like the biometric pressure, whatever pressure they measure, can be the same. It's interesting. You think those would be important things to learn about? I don't know, it seems to be kept amongst certain schools or professionals, and everyone's just stupid and doesn't know about it. I don't know, it's really dumb. People try to get through to mainstream and other things like that about basic human functioning and understanding and how that correlates to the massive overload of SSRIs and damaged prefrontal cortexes. It's very similar to if you use alcohol early on, such as myself. I started drinking very young, as a lot of us did. It was normal for where I grew up, as I hear. But yeah, I like this creatine. This is probably my favorite. Creatine monohydrate provides 5 grams of 100% pure creatine monohydrate, a widely studied supplement ingredient to help support ATP recycling for explosive movements. Creatine monohydrate supports muscle building, recovery, performance, strength, and power when used daily, over time, and combined with exercise. This is Illinois, Downers Grove, Illinois, packed in the USA. International and domestic origins. Micronized creatine powder for muscle building support. If you look it up, they have done studies on it about helping with brain injuries or mental functioning or something. I would agree with that. I've used it off and on for years. How would I describe what symptoms were associated to make me feel that way? Good question. I would say, as far as being able to focus, maybe. Yeah, maybe that correlates to kind of racing thoughts or feeling hectic within your physical or mental space and being able to kind of calm the storm, as they say. And even sometimes, well, if we appear calm on the outside, our hearts could be racing. Could be a lot going on, like the dentist chair, as my son likes to call it. And just being able to recognize that, not to say, oh, that makes you nervous, or this makes me nervous, and that makes me weak, but just to recognize those things in regulation and to not label it right or wrong. Yeah, that delves into a whole lot of other classes. You could segue a few ways there, for sure. Almost any direction, huh? Yet, too, this is did I already read this part? No. Yet, too, this is a historical novel, which means that a period and a scene have been enriched, indeed largely created, by general reference to known circumstances. I am therefore constrained to list here with gratitude and respect a little catalogue of those materials which gave me the most of pleasure and instruction in preparation for the tasks of many years which this story represents. Louisa May Alcott, Hospital Sketches. John Russell Bartlett, for personal narrative and explorations and incidences in Texas, New Mexico, California, Sonora, and Chihuahua. We'll leave that. That lists a lot of names and places. Apache Days, Turmoil in New Mexico, Personal Recollections and Observations. Also, files of the Calvary Journal, various United States government publication of documents, congressional hearings and reports on Indian affairs and frontier troubles, indemnity claims, military policy and experience, Surgeon General records, etc., and Signal Corps photographs of early Army posts. Signed, P.H. We'll start on page 3. Take this water. Cheers. 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 Douche. Still recording on here. Yeah. So much space I have. If it cuts out, it might cut out. I probably won't read too much of this. We'll start. I'm going to make some rice in a little bit. Do you know Matthew Carlton Hazard used to say in happier times, "The earliest chief thing I knew in my life." "Know what?" they would ask. "It was to know while I was still a little boy who I was and who I was going to be." "Who were you?" "I was my father's child." And then they would come to know how this was and what it meant. In those early times of our American grandfathers and great-grandfathers, 2 prevailing visions dwelled above their lives. One was the spiritual design of national union, which in the Civil War took so much bravery and sacrifice to secure. The other was the continental destiny of the United States, which in the conquest and settlement of the West took so much work and love to fulfill. The Civil War was the universal event of the nation in the 19th century. It was the watershed of millions of destinies. It was the source of emotion and the crucible of character. It made histories and personal unions and generations. And after its time, it yielded the nostalgia into which children were born, and it gave to the future a fabric of common experience which made our national condition. The opening and taking of the Far West began before the war and continued after it, and made promises where the war made memories. It brought people from both sides of the war together in a new purpose. And to those who went west, it presented danger, hope, and a share in a heroic creation. Having saved the Union, our grandfathers, with their bodies and their acts of work, found for it new lands to grow in, to forgive in, and to die in for the sake of that which, though it lived in their spirits, was yet greater than they.